The factory air, heavy with metal and oil, seemed to hum with contained frustration. There, in the center of that organized chaos, lay the prototype, a machine of dizzying complexity, designed to be the apex of modern engineering, now silent, a sleeping giant devouring millions in losses. Dr. Evelyn Vance, with her gleaming diplomas and an eagle's gaze, scanned spreadsheets, every line of code screaming the inexplicable failure. Her team of young engineers, once vibrant, wilted under the weight. Of that enigma, the atmosphere charged with a skepticism bordering on despair. No one could understand why that engine refused to emit even a whisper of sound. It was a huge loss for the company and an unsolved mystery. It was then that an older employee, his voice hoarse with experience, mentioned Jack. At first, restrained laughter filled the space. Jack, the mechanic in the dirty overalls, he'd fix something like this. The mockery was palpable. Jack, a man in his early 40s with calloused hands that seemed to tell stories of 1,000 repairs, approached. He wore oil-stained overalls that were his second skin. His calm eyes, which saw beyond the obvious, rested on the metallic carcass, contrasting with the haste and affliction that dominated the environment. He was a relic of a simpler time, a discreet figure who moved with the wisdom of the earth. Dr. Evelyn Vance watched him. Her lips, outlined by the perfection of a sharp intellect, formed a condescending smile. It was a challenge disguised as an invitation, a cruel game, orchestrated to prove the supremacy of mind over intuition. The room waited. The colossal, impotent engine seemed to mock the engineering doctors. Jack, in turn, just took a deep breath. He could feel the faulty melody of that metal, a silent lament that no algorithm had been able to translate. The audience's curiosity was piqued. What would this simple man do in front of such a colossus? Liked the introduction? Dive deeper into this symphony of iron and heart. Like, comment, and share to unveil every note of this journey. Jack grew up in a small workshop in a rural town. There, the smell of grease and gasoline was part of home. He learned the trade from his father, who had no diplomas, but understood engines like few others. It was knowledge passed down from generation to generation, based on practice, trial and error, and intuition. The machines didn't speak, but Jack learned to listen to their squeaks and knocks. He came to the big city seeking more work and hope for his family. However, in this new place, he was seen as just a manual laborer, someone worthless in a world that only admired those with college degrees and titles. His simple appearance and calm demeanor reinforced this view. At the automotive plant, many engineers looked at him like an antique museum piece, someone who didn't fit into the era of advanced technology. To them, Jack was slow, perhaps naive, and his way of talking to machines was old-fashioned. No one seemed to notice the sparkle in his eyes when he was near an engine, the passion in his calloused hands. The value he placed on hard work and knowledge gained from experience was not recognized by those who only saw numbers and complex theories. On top of everything, Jack carried a heavy burden. He was the sole provider for his younger sister, who had health problems and required a lot of care and expenses. This silent responsibility weighed on his shoulders, making him even more vulnerable to the contempt of others. Every look of pity or mockery was another wound. But Jack didn't give up. He needed that job, needed to prove his worth not out of ego, but for the dignity of his craft and the promise of a better future for his sister. His strength came from that love and that silent stubbornness. Jack approached the stalled engine. Calmly, he began to inspect the metal giant, running his hands over the parts as if he could feel them. Dr. Evelyn Vance's engineers, who were nearby, watched with contemptuous glances. They whispered and exchanged ironic smiles. To them, it was a ridiculous spectacle to see a simple mechanic attempt something that they, with all their training, had failed to do. The atmosphere grew heavy, filled with an air of superiority that made Jack feel even smaller in that modern, impersonal environment. Every movement Jack made was silently judged and disdained by those who considered themselves the elite of knowledge there. The humiliation intensified when Dr. Evelyn Vance approached. With a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she threw out a challenge in a mocking tone, almost whispering so the team could hear. "If you fix this engine, mechanic, I'll marry you." Her phrase wasn't a promise, but a cruel joke, full of sarcasm. The loud laughter of Dr. Evelyn Vance and her engineers echoed through the factory, making Jack feel the weight of every taunt. He showed no anger, but a silent discomfort. His face, once calm, became slightly tense, showing that the words had struck deep at his dignity. Jack didn't respond with words. He merely nodded, a simple gesture that carried all his stubbornness and the certainty of his ability. He refused to be intimidated by that public humiliation. The sound of laughter diminished, replaced by a silence charged with expectation. No one there believed he could succeed. But, in Jack's gaze, there was a determination that others couldn't read. He felt the injustice of the moment, the way his knowledge was devalued, but that only spurred him on to prove them all wrong. Leo, the intern, watched everything closely. He was young, fresh out of college, and saw Dr. Evelyn Vance as an idol. He wanted to be like her, intelligent, with important degrees, and respected by everyone at the automotive plant. At first, Leo also doubted Jack. He shared the skeptical and somewhat arrogant view of the engineering team. To him, knowledge came from books and computers, and Jack's way of working seemed outdated, almost ridiculous. He watched Jack bend over the engine, his calloused hands touching the parts, and didn't understand what the mechanic expected to find there. Without the aid of the cutting-edge technology they valued and mastered so much. But as the days passed and Jack didn't give up, something began to change in Leo. He saw Jack's dedication, the patience with which he tried again and again, the way he seemed to listen to the engine. It was different from the haste and frustration of Dr. Evelyn Vance and her team, who merely reviewed spreadsheets and theories. Leo began to notice that the passion in Jack's eyes was something he had never seen in the other engineers. The mechanic didn't follow a manual, but a deep intuition, something the college textbooks didn't teach. Leo perceived how the frustration of others and Dr. Evelyn Vance's sarcasm increased with each attempt. However, in his silence, the young intern began to question his own ideas. Intelligence could be in calculations, yes, but also in the hands that knew the material. He saw Jack covered in grease, but with a light in his eyes that was missing in many around him. Leo, who previously only admired cold logic, began to see the beauty and complexity of knowledge that came from practice. Little by little, his eyes opened to a different kind of wisdom, one that the university had not shown him. Every time Jack tried something and the engine didn't respond, Dr. Evelyn Vance's sarcasm grew stronger. She made cutting remarks about magic versus science, always with a superior smile. The pressure mounted. Many employees made bets on Jack's failure, and he could feel the looks of pity and disdain. Leo, watching him, began to feel a growing discomfort. He saw Jack's stubborn persistence, the way he never gave up, something he didn't find in Dr. Evelyn Vance, despite all her brilliance. This passion for the work was a detail that college theories couldn't explain, and Leo found himself increasingly intrigued. There were moments when Jack almost succumbed to despair. That engine was too complex, and the hours of work were exhausting. With each failed attempt, the image of his ailing sister, depending on him, came to mind. The challenge thrown by Dr. Evelyn Vance also echoed, but not as something to be overcome out of pride, but as proof of his dignity. He took a deep breath, ran a hand through his oily hair, and returned to work. This silent love for his sister and the stubbornness in his heart were the fuel that drove him to continue, even when everything seemed lost and exhaustion overcame him. At night, in his humble home, Jack didn't rest. He spread old diagrams on the floor, drawings of engines from past decades, and studied them with a magnifying glass. It was knowledge not found in modern engineering textbooks, but in the yellowed pages of experience. He dreamed of the engine, of noises and gears, seeking the solution in his deepest thoughts. The tension reached its peak. A final deadline was fast approaching, and the pressure to fix the engine became unbearable. Jack knew time was running out, but a small detail, something he had noticed the day before, wouldn't leave his mind. A seed of hope amid the chaos. The story is about to take a turn. Don't miss the upcoming events. Follow our profile and stay tuned for every emotion. What do you think Jack will discover? Leave your comment. The turning point happened in a moment of profound quiet. After days of exhaustive work, when everyone expected inevitable failure, Jack asked for one last moment alone with the engine. The factory floor was empty, the industrial light dim. He closed his eyes, his calloused hands touching the cold metal of the engine. Jack didn't use complex tools, only his intuition. He listened to the engine as if the metal could speak. It was an old way of working, one his engineering professors would despise, but for him, it was the only way. To understand what the machine was feeling. Suddenly, Jack felt something, an almost imperceptible vibration, a tiny movement that no high-tech sensor, no matter how modern, had managed to capture. It was like a silent scream coming from inside the engine, an anomaly so small that only years of experience and sharp intuition could detect it. That insignificant detail was the big problem. He opened his eyes. The engine, to others' eyes, seemed perfect, but Jack knew there was a flaw there. He had found the root of the entire problem. He stepped back and, with a precise movement, pointed to a minuscule screw. "It's this screw." His voice was calm but firm. "The thread is slightly worn. That causes a microscopic imbalance that our sensors don't read." The disbelief of the engineering team was palpable. Dr. Evelyn Vance laughed, thinking it was a trivial detail, too insignificant for such a complex engine. But Jack, without saying another word, quickly replaced the tiny part. The tension in the air was palpable. This was the moment of truth, the final test of his intuition against their logic. Jack pressed a button. The factory floor fell silent for a second, tense. Then a soft hiss began, different from anything they had heard before. After that, the hiss transformed into a low, steady, perfect hum. The engine, previously silent and lifeless, sprang to life. It ran perfectly, with a symphony that seemed impossible, filling the air with the sound of victory. That clean sound was proof that Jack was right, and that all their technology had failed to find what the mechanic's intuition had. The engine's noise filled the space, silencing everyone's skepticism. Dr. Evelyn Vance's face contorted. First, shock, then shame. Finally, a surprise bordering on admiration. Her mocking smile dissolved, and embarrassed silence replaced the laughter that had once echoed. She, the brilliant engineer, had been outdone by a mechanic she had so underestimated. The other engineers on the team were also speechless, not knowing what to say. They exchanged glances, their former arrogance replaced by mute astonishment. That engine wasn't just a repaired project. It was proof that they were all wrong in their judgments. Dr. Evelyn Vance, in a gesture worth more than 1,000 apologies, began to walk towards Jack. Her eyes, once full of irony, now revealed pure respect. She didn't offer marriage, of course, but she extended her hand to him. It wasn't the hand of a boss to an employee, but of an equal to a master. I was wrong," she said, her few words laden with weight and humility. "You're a genius." Leo, the intern, applauded, feeling tears in his eyes. His worldview had shifted. He understood that true engineering wasn't just in books, but in the passion and wisdom of the hands. The story of Jack and the engine no one could fix echoes a simple yet powerful lesson. True knowledge isn't confined to diplomas hanging on a wall or to important positions. It resides in dedication, passion, and the wisdom gained from hands-on work, from years of experience, and from a heart that refuses to give up. It's an invitation to look beyond what the eyes see, to value all forms of intelligence, no matter where it comes from. Humility often harbors a greatness that arrogance will never achieve, showing that a person's worth goes far beyond their resume or social standing. Jack, the mechanic who was seen as invisible, became a symbol of resilience. He accepted the humiliation with dignity and proved his worth not with shouts, but with the silence of his work and the perfect hum of an engine. That day transformed the factory environment and, more importantly, changed the perception of people like Dr. Evelyn Vance and Leo. They learned that respect is built by overcoming prejudice, by looking at the human being and at knowledge with an open mind, not with judgments based on appearances or titles. In the end, the most beautiful symphony wasn't the sound of the repaired engine, but the union of two seemingly opposite ideas, the theory of engineering and the practice of mechanics, the mind and the hands. It was the moment when academic intelligence and experiential wisdom met and completed each other. Jack didn't need grandiose words to teach. His passion and his ability spoke for themselves, showing that true light doesn't shine in the spotlights, but in the soul that finds its home and purpose, making hope blossom where there was once only contempt. Did this story move you? If so, like this script, leave your comment about the message it conveyed, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and emotional narratives. Your interaction is the light that drives us.